What's good? It's your boy Fanon. I'm going to talk about something that Floyd Mayweather Jr. said that I think is very, very true about Terence Crawford and Errol Spence Jr. eventually being the biggest fight in boxing. And it's something that I agree with and something that I'm happy about, but something at the same time I really do dread because whenever you have a big fight coming up, there are people you wind up having to take sides, or a lot of people take sides. So if you say something good about one fighter, you get attacked by the fan base of the other side, and vice versa. And specifically for Errol Spence Jr. and Terence Crawford, for me, that would be a very unpleasant situation, man. I wouldn't say that I was going to sit that fight out, but man, it would be just so hard, man, because there's the contrasting styles, the accolades for both on both sides. It's just a situation where it's just ripe for a lot of bickering, a lot of hard and harsh feelings. And in boxing, as soon as you get a mega fight coming up, man, both sides, the fan bases for each other start going at each other harder than the fighters do. Now, before I get into that discussion and talk about and let you know exactly what Floyd Mayweather Jr. said, and then also talk about, the timing of this and what needs to happen for this fight to happen. Let me invite you to the live streams that we're going to do today. And the best way to know about the live streams and have real-time conversation with myself and other boxing fans, knowledgeable boxing fans, is to subscribe and hit the bell icon, and that way you can be notified of when it is. Now, let me go through this. Mayweather, Crawford, Spence will be the biggest fight in boxing. Former 5-division world champion Floyd Mayweather Jr. believes a welterweight showdown between Terence Crawford, who's 32-0 with 23 KOs, and Errol Spence, who's 23-0 with 20 KOs, will eventually become the biggest fight in the sport. From the moment Crawford announced his move to 147 pounds, fans began clamoring to see him and Spence in the ring. Honestly speaking, I think soon the biggest fight that's going to be in that's going to be in boxing is Terence Crawford and Errol Spence. That is going to be a huge fight, I think, in boxing. In the future, it's going to be pay-per-view worthy. In the future, it will be pay-per-view. But not right now. I will pay to see it, Mayweather told FightHype.com. While Crawford's handlers view Thurman as a tougher contest, Mayweather disagrees and says Spence is, without a question, a tougher task. Last year, Spence traveled over to the UK and picked up a knockout victory over Kell Brook to capture the IBF championship. He is scheduled to return in a Showtime televised fight on June 16th in his hometown of Dallas, Texas. The opponent is still slated to be undefeated mandatory challenger Carlos Ocampo of Mexico. Crawford had his own level of success in 2017. He knocked out Julius Ndungo to unify the entire junior welterweight division as he brought together the IBF, WBC, WBO, WBA world titles. And prior to that win, he secured a stoppage victory over Olympic gold medal winner Felix Diaz. Following his capture of the belts, Crawford announced his move to the welterweight class and vacated all 4 titles. Crawford was immediately made the mandatory challenger by the WBO, the World Boxing Organization. He was scheduled to fight WBO welterweight champion Jeff Horn on April 14th at the T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas. But the contest was postponed after Crawford suffered a hand injury in training camp. Now the contest will take place on June 9th at Las Vegas MGM Grand. Now, I want to correct something here. This was an article by Boxing Clever, and there was one thing that he said that I know is a misstatement. While Crawford's handlers view Keith Thurman as the tougher contest, Mayweather disagrees and says Spence is without question the tougher task. That should be backwards. Bo Mack said the person he thought was the toughest heavyweight was Errol Spence Jr. And that nobody, unless he's talking about some other handler other than Terence Crawford himself and Terence Crawford's trainer, Brian McIntyre said that he thought that Errol Spence Jr. would be the toughest test. The Errol Spence Jr. said that he thought the toughest test for him would be Keith Thurman. So just to correct that, that's what was said. Now, now while I agree that this is the best fight in box, I think this is, from a commercial standpoint, I'm not quite sure if it's going to be the biggest financial fight in boxing. Because, and this is the reason I say that, and I could be incorrect, but to me it seems as if they both have pretty much the same fan base. I'm a big supporter of Errol Spence Jr. I'm a big supporter of Terence Crawford, and I think if for the most part, and I got a pretty good I got my nose pretty close to the ground, or ear pretty close to the ground, excuse me, on the subject. Having done videos about Terence Crawford, a lot of videos on Errol Spence. I participate in listen to live streams on other channels. I watch other channels' videos, read newspaper articles daily in the sport of boxing. And from what I can see, the fan base of Terence Crawford and Errol Spence Jr., they cross one another. They cross one another pretty regularly. So, I'm a fan of Errol Spence Jr. I'm a fan of Terence Crawford, and I think that a large part of that's going to happen. Now, what I see it as is I see this being a fight between Errol Spence and Terence Crawford, really being a big fight for boxing fans, for people that really, really love to see great fights. I don't think that there's a better fight that can be made in boxing right now, other than perhaps Deontay Wilder versus Anthony Joshua. And the reason but I don't necessarily think that would be as good of a boxing match as Terence Crawford and Errol Spence Jr. Because I don't think the styles contrast well enough to really, really, really make it as entertaining and as, where you don't really know what's going to happen, right? You have the guy that's the come forward pressure fighter who's got the size advantage, vicious body attack, but a very nice jab, who knows how to cut off the ring, or it is the guy that can fight orthodox southpaw, smaller guy with quick hands who makes adjustments well, right? It's just all of those things come into play, and the fact that that the entire fan base for both of them are in the same country could just really, really make for an electrifying event. While the money, clearly, I do not believe is as big as it is between Deontay Wilder and Anthony Joshua. But the whole lead up to the fight, God, I can't even imagine how many arguments and, how many back and forths are going to be on videos about that one, man. Because just right now, when this fight is probably, at least a year off, man, you already have people who are just jumping in there talking about, Bud is man down, and Bud's gonna crush Spence, and just all of that stuff is already happening. It's already starting to boil up. So, man, I just certainly hope that fight happens. But I don't know, I don't necessarily agree with him that it's going to be the financially the biggest fight in boxing. But Floyd Mayweather Jr., I'll tell you this, he dang sure knows a lot more about fights making big money than I do. So if he says it, go with him over what I have to say, because he is without a doubt an expert in that field. Now, what would need to happen for it to be that? You have in the welterweight division, obviously, you have silos in the welterweight division. And it seems as if you have three silos, three different vertical, three different sections of the welterweight division, where you have the IBF in Errol Spence, then you have the WBA and the WBC, which is, now run by, Keith. Once upon a time, sit on his backside Thurman. Often, man, one injury after another, Thurman controlling the WBA and the WBC. And then you have right now the Jeff Horn with the WBO, the Jeff Horn, the Terence Crawford section with the WBO. Now, clearly, two of those things I think are solid. In that I don't see anybody who's fighting over there in the IBF beating Errol Spence Jr. And I see Terence Crawford winning in the, beating, Jeff Horn to win that WBO belt. And I'm telling you, man, I'm making a prediction. I've said this before. I think this fight stops on cuts. I think it's going to be a good fight. I think it's going to be a better fight than some people think it's going to be. I think Jeff Horn is a very tough, rugged, very, very big, big, awkward fighter. And it might take Terence Crawford a little bit of time, just a little bit of time to figure it out and really how to take him. Though I don't think Jeff Horn is going to be able to figure out Terence Crawford, despite what his trainer, I think his name is Glenn Rushton, who's clearly a very good trainer, having coached him to beat Manny Pacquiao. Now, I say that, and I know that a lot of people listen to this. Please don't tell me in the comment section that Jeff Horn didn't beat Manny Pacquiao. It is like every time I do a video and I say that, I get like at least 3 comments where people telling me I'm out of my mind. Jeff Horn did not beat Manny Pacquiao. Yes, Jeff Horn did beat Manny Pacquiao. Go to boxrec.com and see look at the fight and see who it says who the winner was. It was Jeff Horn. Okay, and it's now been not quite a year. It's time to sit on that one and just accept it for what it is. Because if Manny Pacquiao had won that fight, Terence Crawford would not be fighting for the WBO championship in June. Somebody else would be. Because dang well Manny Pacquiao is not about to fight Terence Crawford. Now that said, I definitely do take Terence Crawford to win that fight. But then after that, I do not see them going straight into an Errol Spence Jr. fight. More than likely, it's going to be somebody, and I got to admit, Bob Aaron's been surprising me lately. He's been making some fights that I didn't think he was going to make. I did not think he was going to make Lomachenko versus Jorge Linares, right? But it could be somebody else. Now, who I'm really hoping would be next, because I'm telling you, man, I want that WBC and the WBA thing to get solved. I would love for if Keith Thurman is going to continue to be spend so much time injured, right, where the belts can't be defended, because neither the WBA or the WBC belt has been defended since in the last year and a month. And he was supposed to fight in May. So, that's a year and 3 months. If he gets pushed back 2 months, 3 months, that'd have been a year and a half since the WBA and the WBC belts have even been defended. And now you have a title eliminator that's been ordered between Danny Garcia and Sean Porter. So when they get done with what they're supposed to do, then you're going to get a fight. Hopefully you'll get a fight with Keith Thurman. But, Keith Thurman needs a tune-up or two. So I'm hoping that he gets stripped and you just he gets stripped, or he gets, elevated to, or changes into champion and recess, something where those belts can be, competed, fought for, or at least this, because see, I'm a believer that I want to see the fighters fight. I want to see who the best fighter is. And really, to me, if there were no belts, it would make everything a lot more simple, because then you would, all of the accolades that you have, all of the bragging rights that you have, none of those would be symbolized in the belt. They would be, you could only get it if you actually beat the guy that everybody else thinks is the best. And they could challenge each other and do all that stuff, but that's not really possible with these sanctioning organizations and with the sanctioning bodies and these belts. But if they strip Keith Thurman or they move him to championship champion in recess, then Danny Garcia and Sean Porter can fight one another, and whoever winds up with those belts, hopefully they would be willing to fight Errol Spence Jr. And then have Errol Spence Jr. with that IBF and WBC, WBA, and then have the WBO champion in Terence Crawford, ready to fight next. But I think what could really help Terence Crawford is if a certain other, I guess you could call him, basically the guy, Mikey Garcia. I won't try to Mikey Garcia. I think Mikey Garcia plays into this very interestingly in an interesting fashion, because if Mikey Garcia if Mikey Garcia would fight Terence Crawford, I think that would really elevate the status of Terence Crawford in the eyes of the boxing world, because they probably both have equal fan bases. And I think that a fight between Terence Crawford and Mikey Garcia falling somewhere in the May time frame or the September time frame really could get Terence Crawford to that level, where a fight with him against Errol Spence Jr. could be a very, very big fight. But so I guess I do, after thinking about it a little more, I do agree, looking at it from the perspective of Floyd Mayweather Jr., there's definitely a path for those two guys to wind up being at the top in the biggest fight in boxing. If not the biggest, the second biggest. Because I think without a doubt it's bigger than any other fight. I think it's bigger. I think that fight could be, especially if it goes that route, if it's built in the way, not built like just sitting around waiting around, people not fighting the best competition, but really both these guys knock off the competition in the welterweight division, which is so deep. And that's a beautiful thing about the welterweight division. The welterweight division does not only have really good talent at the top, it also has very good talent, talent in throughout the it has a lot of great talent throughout the division. So where you have guys like, for the welterweight division, you have guys like you have in the welterweight division, excuse me, I'm sorry, I was just pulling this to the side because it messed up. You have Danny Garcia, Sean Porter, Jesse Vargas. You got guys like Ugas. You got even tough guys like Adrian Granados. You have God, what's his name? The guy that Adrian Bronner was about to fight, but you still have Manny Pacquiao. You have Omar Figueroa is the guy that I'm talking about. Also, you got guys like Ray Robinson, who's a decent fighter. Bradley Skeet is worth having up in there, but of course you have Jeff Horn. You have a lot of different guys out in the welterweight division for these guys to make fights with. But the top of it, so they've got depth, but they've also got the guys at the top, which are Sean Porter, Danny Garcia, Jeff Horn, Terence Crawford, Keith Thurman. And if you say Mikey Garcia is going to come up, you got Mikey Garcia. As long as Manny Pacquiao's got his name hanging out there, you got Manny Pacquiao, who's going to be fighting for the WBA regular title. So, they just got a lot of depth in this. And the best way I think that where this could be is where this fight between Terence Crawford and Errol Spence Jr. could be that mega fight, is if they all fight their way through those guys, right? Not a situation where, you do like Keith Thurman and you just, fake an injury. You're not faking injury. You get injured, you wait for everybody, to knock each other off. And then you're the only one. Then you got one guy to beat and you're the guy standing there, I don't think it's that way. But if you can have Errol Spence Jr. beat Danny Garcia, Errol Spence Jr. beat Sean Porter, beat Keith Thurman, and Terence Crawford, beat Mikey Garcia, beat Jeff Horn, beat Mikey Garcia, beat a Manny Pacquiao, beat a Ugas, right? And then as a result of those guys, having these great fights and a lot of anticipation building up for the fight, then I think that it can be one of those really, really big occasions that we see in boxing. And we really only see those type of occasions in the heavyweight division. I mean, those mega ones in the heavyweight division and the welterweight division. Since Mike Tyson, since the heavyweight division has fallen off on pay-per-view, which I think the last one was Mike Tyson versus Lennox Lewis. The only other pay-per-views that have been that big have all pretty much involved Floyd Mayweather Jr. And that means heavyweight to welterweight. And now you got two situations where the two biggest fights are heavyweight and welterweight again. And so I hope to see them happen. With that, I'm out. Peace.